everybody to a conversation, in particular a feedback loop for the lived experience of co-design of New South Wales LHD in terms of the Lismore safe space. My name's James, I'm one of the facilitators from Rose in the Ocean, and today I have with me Will. Can you introduce yourself, Will?
Hi everybody, one of the facilitators on the project, working alongside James to assist with the co-design here in Lismore. I come with an experience of suicidality myself, as well as about 10 years of design experience. I'm really excited by everything that everybody's contributed to the project so far, and super excited to show you what we have so far today.
Thanks, Will. We've got lots to get through, so let's go straight into it. I'll be sharing the screen as you can't see it already. In terms of that feedback, a quick acknowledgement of country, traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We acknowledge the Bundjalung Nation of the traditional owners of the lands on which the Lismore safe space will be established. Also like to pay respects and acknowledgement to those that we lost to suicide, or those that are currently in suicidal crisis, those who may be bereaved by suicide, and recognise that every lived experience is unique. Every lived experience is valuable, and everyone's lived experience can make a difference. So let's have a quick look at the process so far in terms of this feedback. The orientation webinar was an opportunity to have a look at what it all meant and where it was heading towards. The information pack as well, but also the lived experience focus group conversations, which we're going to have a conversation about now, but the health professional group of conversations have also been had, and as well as the co-design session, which was about 4 hours. And today we are talking about the feedback loop. In fact, I think it actually, there we go. There's the feedback loop. That's where we're up to now. The purpose of this feedback loop itself is to provide context of the co-design process. Make sure we've captured what has been shared during the initial co-design sessions and gather broader views and experiences, explore a little bit around what's missing and help prepare for the next stage of the co-design process. Is there anything else there, Will, you want to drop in? I think that might be...
I think that's great. For anybody who hasn't participated in this though, or is perhaps seeing this for the first time, one really important core feature of this design process is exactly as James said, it's a co-design approach, which means that we've worked from the very beginning with lived experience participants from within the region who volunteered to take part in this process and brought the lived experience, their own stories to the process, and to actually explain how has their experience accessing an ED been like, and what would they like a future alternative safe space to become, as well as with health professionals on a different contiguous process. So really, really core that whatever this safe space is in the end, when it does roll out, which it will, that is designed by the region for the region. So it's unique to the region itself and what is actually required, which is a really, really exciting approach to build something like this.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. So we had a number of conversations, as we mentioned before, from those who have a lived experience of suicide in the area. And with that, we captured the experience of those individuals from a diverse range. And the four perspectives, including suicide thoughts or ideology, having survived an attempt, having cared, or having been bereaved by suicide. So we captured that spectrum of individuals for their lived experience. And what we did was we walked through the emotions and feelings experienced by an individual seeking help through that emergency department, or for those that chose not to go through the ED, which is important. We unpacked that as well, and explored the reasons why they felt that way and what they felt needed to change along those stages. And those stages or phases or touch points look like the idea of finding the ED, the arrival and initial assessment, the waiting time or period, the treatment or management, as we've picked up as a conversation, and the leaving or departure from that ED. So the next few slides, we're going to look at the feedback from that first phase of the co-design, and everything that we shared being captured with most common themes shown in these following slides. So about understanding your experience. In terms of the finding, what were you feeling? So this is the getting access to the emergency department. Feelings around eye roll experience, especially on first presentation. No privacy at the triage desk amongst a waiting room of people in a small town. Others said I would have had chosen to access emergency, but I did because the person I was with took me there. Horrible process. A lot of validation when staff actually take time to talk and care. And then why were you feeling this way? A lack of privacy. Even if the people aren't looking at you, it feels spotlighted. No privacy. I was visibly upset, felt rushed, and I felt vulnerable. That next phase, in terms of the arrival and initial assessment, what were you feeling? So we can see a number of them. I won't go through them all there, but we can see a number of them there. Didn't feel like the person was present. A lot of stigma, embarrassed, felt pretty small, adding to a feeling of hopelessness, super vulnerable, very sensitive with how people are going to interact with me. So let me have a second. As I said, I won't read through every individual one. The waiting period. What were you feeling? It would have been good if the mental health assessment would have acknowledged, or mental health nurse, how tough it was and being compassionate. I didn't know what he was talking about, but he was the one giving treatment. I was on his book. He engaged with me like I was just a person, didn't open conversation. He was there for the practical stuff. Male nurse treated me with kindness. Not much privacy. My two friends had to leave. I had a really bad sleep, didn't want to be in that setting. It wasn't good for me. And a couple of others there, guilt as well. And waiting time were terrible, but improved in recent years, contributes to the distress. Why were you feeling this way? No energy, no drink or tea or basic condiments. Now the comments to those, Will, so far in terms of the finding or the waiting.
I think it's I think it's great. I think it's worth noting that we captured quite a lot, and there's only so much that we can show and also read through on the slides. So this is really just a snippet of the conversations that we had. But I think this particular slide does really illustrate the power in these conversations and why this experience is so important. Having the anecdotes here about the perhaps negative experiences that have happened, about the experience of arriving, of waiting, is really, really important, so we can design away from that. But equally important is if there are any cases, so this male nurse that was mentioned by a participant as part of their experience, and how that was a really positive experience for them. It really did add something. It helped them to feel that they were seen and visible, that there was kindness. That's really important as well. And that can help us understand, well, why is that and how can we engineer that into a safe space in the future? So really, really illustrative for us. There's a lot of data behind this as well that we weren't able to show on all the slides today.
Yeah, and good pickup. There are a number of, as you can see, in this slide in particular, there were some positive experiences too. So not all just difficult experiences. Okay, the treatment or the management phase, what were you feeling? Mental health assessment felt very judgmental. I was seen as a difficult patient. From memory, I don't think there was any follow-up. Didn't feel safe in the environment. By the time I was actually assessed, I was often exhausted. Once I was in the room with a nurse, I would usually feel a little better with the hope that someone might listen. No one there felt disconnected. I only started to feel more connected when my people were there and I could talk to them. Having a jovial, friendly nurse helped. In terms of why they were feeling this way, or you guys were feeling this way, is the process was so long that I was exhausted. If you present with a broken arm, you get a lot of attention, but not when you're distressed and vulnerable. It was an open wound, doesn't feel like you're being well held. And finally, the lack of clarity and information about what was going to happen. The departure or the leaving point or phase, what were you feeling? Relieved to be out of that space. There wasn't much choice in what follow-up was offered. I was glad that they were going to leave me alone because I really didn't enjoy the mental health assessment. Depending on the outcome, if there was no spots, I was just turned away. I felt let down, nervous. Told acute care would contact me. The experience was patchy. Sometimes they would call, others not. Sometimes twice per day, which was annoying, or not for 2 weeks. When I did get help, I would leave with some hope, relieved to be leaving smells, bright for the lights, business of people. So that's the departure. Then in some general kind of comments that came through in terms of those feelings of the overall experience. After that experience, my suicidality decreased. But if I did, I don't think I would ever access ED again. Usually ED was a negative enough experience that I would leave determined not to go back there, and didn't want to leave ED, but no spaces available. So we also asked the questions for those that hadn't accessed the emergency department, and or whether they would consider so. So some comments picked up here. Why didn't you access the ED? It never occurred to me. I had never accessed ED as a teenager. It was an abstract idea. If I think it had occurred to me, I would have not been a comforting option. It wasn't safe for me to. My fear was based on others going through process, and a lot of the fear, and I knew that I wouldn't get turned around because I hadn't done anything yet. And a few other comments there in terms of not having access. I couldn't have done anything for myself at the time. So lots of comments there too, which as Will mentioned before, we haven't picked them all up, but there were some general themes that we certainly picked up in that process. Then we had a conversation with what needs do our safe space need to meet? What are we looking for? In particular, the practical and physical side, this idea of a feeling of need of non-clinical, homely feel, but with a clinical oversight in case of emergency. Indoor and outdoor, maybe green space with plenty of windows to let in natural light and to see out from inside. Maybe a vegetable garden, highly regarded. Comfortable, private, closed-in areas or rooms with couches, other alternatives to chairs and places to sleep. Allow for private conversations. A sensory room with acoustic insulation and sensory and fidget tools, maybe a sequin pillow, some weighted blankets, adjustable lights, essential oils to smell, etc. Warmth comforters, the idea of blankets, hot water bottles, food and drink facilities for self-serve snacks, tea, coffee, water, etc. Activities available, maybe I think we talked about a crafternoon, so art supplies and iPads, computers with headphones, audio books, reading material and the like. A sense of a community library, visual interest aids, soothing natural noises, support animals, dogs and cats, not fish, and I think that was an important one that came up, that idea of the sense of a fish being in a sort of a fish bowl and not being able to get out, and that could have some reflections on individuals' feelings. Co-located with support services, e.g. financial aid, emergency department, etc., but must have a separate entrance, is what came through. And diversity, being able to have flexible language and be culturally informed. In terms of the connection, what they're looking for in that space, peers and people who understand your experience, not just to sit there, support and provide stability, maybe silent mentors or some sense of kindred spirits. Questioning without interrogation. The participant has choices and leads decision-making if desired from the start or from the entry point into this safe space. Staff inquire, what do you want to get out of this space? Understanding of how to help, not just diagnose, this sense of holistic care. Some emotional triage, diverse range of people to support, clear processes of to guide, map, inform the next steps, particularly when someone's in crisis, of course, free of racism. Identification and acceptance that every person's needs are different, so individualise or tailor the needs. Eye contact, very important. A place to be seen and heard. A place of belonging, respect, humour, understanding, kindness, support, discretion, cultural safety, patience and time. Some really great comments that were picked up in those sessions. In terms of information, what might be available, a range of opt-in services, a liaison officer available, opt-in to answering questions, guidance on next steps, guidance on how long someone in need will be at the alternative safe space. Some iPads, computers available with access to online resources, fact sheets available, written guides, explanation of confidentiality, what that means, information about feelings that people can respond to, and non-clinical reading materials, e.g. books for self-healing and or easing of the mind. A couple of questions that we were looking to kind of explore a little bit more from the lived experience individuals, and those that are either on this webinar today or in particular get a chance to respond to the survey, of which we'll show you the link at the end. But things we'd like a little bit more clarification on are things like, would people be asked to leave? And I know this conversation was this idea of, how does that work and what does that look like? What are the inside versus outside hours of care? This sense of how long can people stay? Is it an afternoon? Is it a night? Is it longer? What does that look like? Opening hours, certain hours can be confusing for some if that's not understood or clear. And on-call support outside of opening hours. What happens there as well? Recognition that people are suicidal 24 hours a day, of course, in terms of that support. Any other comments you want to make there, Will?
Well, maybe two comments. One, of all the content that you took us through there, I think it bears thanking the participants again so far for their contribution. It is sometimes a challenging process. It is, I think, a rewarding process at the same time, but it definitely is challenging to think through experiences you've had in the past that have not been positive, and to bring that to the fore to, I think as one of the comments in the chat mentioned, to help somebody else and to help create a better future. But they've done so, and they've done it with gusto, and some really, really great ideas, some really well-articulated experiences. So I just want to thank them again for that. But the second thing would be these questions here in particular. So when you do see the survey, it will have these slides in here, so you can see the content and the data as you go through, and you can answer your thoughts on that in the survey. But maybe keep these questions in mind as you do so. A lot of the considerations we have for the safe space is that at the end of the day, there are resources that we're bound to use, that the ministry in undertaking this project knows there's only so many people they can allocate to safe spaces in terms of funding and resources. But the question is, when do you want the space to be open and what coverage do you want? And that's in your hands to decide ultimately. But that does bear some difficult questions, like you can see here, about if you have somebody who is suicidal in the afternoon, they may be covered by a typical 9 to 5, where if they're suicidal at 3 in the morning, are they not? And so what is the best case that we can work within with the resources that we have at the moment to best service the region? And so we're really curious to get a wide-reaching net of feedback on just that problem, really, to figure out of opening hours. So as you go through the survey, please have a think about this, and any way you think is relevant, pop in any details or ideas that you have.
Yeah, well said, Will. I'll echo that comment about the fantastic conversations we had, the courage that individuals were able to share their stories, and also the passion to find an alternative like this amazing program product. So well said, Will. So the co-designing of our safe space, the idea, we had a conversation around some of those draft values that we picked up. And again, this is one of those things that we had some really deep conversation, a meaty conversation around what that might look like. Some of those here: confidentiality, trust and safety, receptive and responsive, a sense of humility, vulnerability and courage, which came through, dignity, hope and kindness, and peer-led and shared experience, and the idea of choice, which came through a lot of those conversations or feedback before. Some of the draft principles identified from the workshop was that we all learn together. We will take the time to understand your story and your needs in terms of people working in or supporting the alternate to ED space. Compassion is our compass. I love that one. Diversity of identity, needs and choice are always respected. Your story enriches our journey together. All are welcome, all are safe here. The unusual is usual, and we expect to be challenged into different perspectives and always welcome feedback. You know what is best for you, and we will empower your recovery with self-led decision-making and next step guidance. So some really cool principles there. Whilst they're draft, there'll be an opportunity for that to kind of be crafted and fleshed out a little bit more. But there was a long conversation around what these were, and it was great to actually get some values and principles like these. Well done. So the ideas in terms of the design of the safe space, the environment, the non-clinical and homely look and feel like someone's house or living room, but with a clinical oversight. Co-located to other services such as the emergency department, financial aid. Doesn't look like an emergency department or ED, some private access, lounges, blankets, and pillows, sensory room with fidget toys, coffee tables, amenities, private spaces, outdoor area, choices, self-driven decision-making, pleasant place to go, activities that you can opt in to by choice, such as crafternoons or art workshops, a place to rest in quiet private space, some scented oils, plants, artwork by people with lived experience and or centre users. Not too bright, not too dark, not too loud, not too quiet. I love those. In terms of the staffing, peer support staff with lived experience of suicide, sensitive to each other's personal situation. All staff should have relevant training, e.g. first aid, clinical staff available in the case of emergency. Diverse, culturally sensitive people who are not racist. A liaison officer to inform people in need of alternatives. The experience, information upon arrival, information visible, iPads and or computer access with online resources, providing support for onwards referral, support and guidance to define next steps, peer workers just able to sit, calm individuals, support and provide that stability, connect with others, and everything is optional and opt-in by default. And the hours, whilst we asked that question before, we'd like to flesh this out a little bit more, clearly defined hours, as much coverage as possible. And Will, you mentioned that idea of, or that concept around the resourcing and what's appropriate or can be done, not just that 9 to 5, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, and on-call support outside of opening hours. So now it's an opportunity for you to provide us some of that feedback in terms of that the survey there, and you can access that that survey from that link, and you'll provide some of your ideas and questions through the survey. Next steps. Will, do you want to run us through the next steps?
Sure thing. So at the moment, we are in that feedback loop 1 stage, which includes us essentially presenting our homework and all the information we've captured from the participants. We then had that survey open. And so please, anybody who is on the webinar right now, jump on there, fill in the details, any thoughts, comments you have. We really do have a lot of value in that to make sure that we are on track, as well as pick up any other ideas that we didn't capture in the actual sessions, as well as anybody else in the region that can contribute to that. We definitely welcome as many voices as possible. That is really, really crucial to this whole process. We then review a bunch of data and content from the process so far. We have a professionals coming up where the lived experience outputs we provided to them for their thoughts and feedback and contributions. And we start to weave together those two experiences and insights. And then we come back again for a second show and tell. We'll be going through the same process to where the project is up to and continually check in with everybody to make sure we have captured things accurately. We then have a big joint stakeholder session 3 coming up, which I forget the date, but it's in a few weeks' time, I believe. I'm not sure, James, if you remember. That's a big session where we kind of cover everything so far, and that's really getting to the pointy end of having a really clear plan, a really clear idea as to what that safe space is going to be. Before we finish with the 3rd feedback loop, we finalize everything, review everything, and hopefully get the tick of approval from the region. So a lot to do. That will go very, very quickly. And we are working pretty furiously behind the scenes to truck along, but it's really exciting. So any questions or anybody, you have all the Rose's details, so please get in touch. But the big thing that we would ask, absolutely underline and in bold, is that survey is really important for us at each feedback loop stage. So when you have the time, please jump on and let us know what you think.
Well done. Thanks, Will. Thanks for those that are watching. Thanks to those that have participated so far, and thanks to those that will get onto the survey. And we will see you in our next session. Thanks again. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.